The night was ink, the empty streets a graveyard for dreams. Maya and Chloe, twin sisters, trudged 5 blocks every Saturday morning. No fancy car, no spare cash, just a will as sharp as a razor. They scrubbed floors and folded used clothes at Mrs. Gable's thrift shop, trading their labor for a handful of crumpled bills. Every dollar was stuffed into an envelope marked Northwood. The dojo with its gleaming wood floors and blinding gold trophies wasn't a place for them. It was a playground for rich kids, not for girls who learned to fight on YouTube. But still, they went, the envelope trembling in their hands, their hearts pounding. The receptionist offered a cold smirk. Credit card. Chloe's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. "We don't have one, but we'll pay in full. We promise." The woman's gaze swept over them, the matching braids, the faded hoodies, the undeniable look of being broke. They didn't belong here. But just then, a derisive laugh cut through the room. Kyle, Northwood's self-proclaimed king, sauntered over, his gaze like a weapon. "You two really think you can hang," he sneered. "These mats aren't for kids from the slums." A jolt shot through Maya, her hands clenching into fists. They weren't just facing scorn anymore. They had just walked into a war, and no one in this dojo was betting on them. Would they prove everyone wrong? Or be crushed under the weight of this gleaming, polished world? They weren't rich, no car of their own, no credit cards, no almond milk in their backpacks. What Maya and Chloe had was something money couldn't buy: discipline, willpower, and a promise to never back down. Every Saturday morning, before the sun was up, they were out the door, cold bread stuffed in their pockets, water bottles filled at home. They walked 5 blocks to the thrift store. To work. No kidding. They dusted shelves, swept up broken glass, and sorted through piles of clothes someone else had cast off. Mrs. Gable, the owner, paid them $5 each, cash, non-negotiable, and they never argued, because they had chosen pain to earn a spot in the playground of those who had never known it. They had a goal, and that goal had a name: Northwood, a dojo with floors that gleamed like a showroom, walls covered in trophies, coaches trained overseas. A place Maya and Chloe knew wasn't for people like them. They knew that, but they didn't care. They just worked. 10 months of no snacks at school, 10 months of learning to patch their own shoes on YouTube. Then one day, they showed up, their father with them, an envelope full of crumpled, hard-earned bills in his hand. 1 month, paid in full, he said, his hand squeezing his daughter's shoulders, as if afraid someone might brush them aside. The receptionist raised an eyebrow, her voice cold. "We usually require a credit card on file." One of the twins lifted her head, her eyes unblinking. "We don't have one. But we'll earn the rest, I promise." She looked them up and down, matching braids, matching hoodies, and a look in their eyes, unlike any student she'd ever seen. Then, as if signing a pardon for a lost cause, she pushed 2 forms across the counter. "Orientation is on Monday." No good luck, no smile, just a reluctant nod from a world that didn't believe the poor could win. Monday morning, they walked into Northwood, backpacks still on, their sneakers squeaking on floors so clean they mirrored the lights. The walls were lined with photos of black belts, with fists clenched like bronze statues. Everything was uniform, clean, orderly. But no one paid any attention to the 2 girls standing by the door, except for the 2 boys posted up like guards in the far corner. One leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his chest. The other tossed a ball up and down as if he were bored out of his mind. Their gazes swept over the twins, slow, dismissive, as if they'd just caught the scent of poverty. A smaller girl came closer, her voice a whisper. "That's Kyle and Jason. Don't mess with them. Around here, they think they're kings." The twins nodded, said nothing. It wasn't because they were scared. It was because when you're there to learn, you don't waste your breath starting trouble. The first class, there was no welcoming applause, no banners, just the squeak of sneakers on the wood floor and the cold weight of a dozen scrutinizing eyes. "You the new students?" Coach Evans asked, his eyes flicking down at his list, then up. Chloe nodded. Maya did, too. Chloe spoke. "I'm Chloe. This is my sister, Maya." A laugh cut through the back of the class. Kyle, his arms crossed. Jason, leaning against the wall. a lazy smirk on his face. Twins. Huh, gonna be hard to tell you apart. Maybe we should stick a name tag on your foreheads. Jason grinned, his voice sour. Or maybe the coaches just need special glasses. To spot the charity cases, a few snickers followed. No one said a word, and no one stopped them. Coach Evans didn't react. He just nodded, pointing to the back of the line. Get in position, the warm-up began. Basic katas, straight punches, blocks, pivots. The twins' movements weren't smooth, but something made Coach Evans narrow his eyes. It wasn't the clumsiness of a first-timer, it was something raw, rooted like unpolished stone. He watched them for a moment longer, then walked over as Maya repracticed a leg pivot. Where did you train, Maya? Breathless, kept her eyes on her feet. We haven't. Sir, self-taught Chloe interjected, her voice steady. Our dad works a lot, at home. We watch old tournament clips on TV. You watch and you copy, Evans asked. Though it sounded more like a statement, Maya gave a faint nod. We'd watch one leg sweep for 3 days straight, then just drill it on each other. Hurt like hell sometimes. But we learned. Evans was silent for a beat. Then he just nodded, a small gesture, but anyone paying attention could see something shifting. He'd seen plenty of students dropped off in their parents' BMWs. But students who wrapped their own shins in kitchen towels were rarer. And they didn't break easily. The class continued. Evans called out commands. The group moved as one. Fast, clean, uniform, no one was allowed to fall behind. Maya's kick wasn't straight enough. Chloe's center of gravity was off. The stares began to follow them. Silent, obvious. Someone should remind them this is a dojo, not a fly-swatting class, Jason said, his voice low but loud enough for the whole row to hear. Kicking like that, the floor doesn't even feel a vibration. Kyle laughed, relentless. Northwood must have switched to a charity model. Black belt comes with a free school lunch. Makes sense. A few kids laughed quietly. No one made eye contact, no one spoke up. They didn't need to. The words were sharp enough. Chloe's jaw tightened. Maya kept her eyes forward. They didn't respond. They didn't bow their heads. They weren't here to talk back. They were here to learn. At the end of class, they lined up. They bowed. Kyle brushed past them. He didn't look at them, but his voice was too loud to ignore. You two ever hear the phrase, know your place, or do they not teach that where you're from? Jason added with a soft chuckle. Makes sense. When you're poor enough to pay for class with loose change, who has time to learn manners? Chloe's jaw twitched. Maya stood still. Didn't turn, didn't ask. Kyle continued. Just look at those hoodies, trying to act tough. But poor is still poor. Jason shook his head. Northwood must be accepting hardship cases now. They probably think these wood floors are public housing. Someone behind them snickered. Someone else clicked their tongue. But no one dared to intervene. Maya breathed slowly. Know your place. They'd heard it before. All their lives. From teachers. From cashiers. From the mothers at talent shows who looked at them like they were a smudge on a clean white page. But this time, they wouldn't swallow it. They wouldn't step aside. This time, they would rewrite the definition. Not with words, but with their heels, their elbows, and a silence that was more humiliating than any comeback. The second week, Maya and Chloe still arrived early. They still warmed up in the back row. Speaking to no one. They did everything right, the right stance, the right bow, the right breathing. But the class was no longer just quiet. No one asked them questions. No one said hello back. There were only stares. And small laughs when they made a mistake. Maya, to the left. Evans commanded. Maya obeyed. As she stepped out, Jason moved forward, deliberately cutting across her path and slammed his shoulder into hers. Maya stumbled. Jason kept walking, nonchalant. Wow, didn't know you needed a coach to walk in a straight line. From behind, Chloe's voice was a low, cold growl. This is training, not a parade. Evans walked past without stopping, tossing out a single command, focus on your technique. Maya didn't reply. She just returned to her spot, silent, and continued. Jason shot Chloe a thin, mocking smile. It happened in the middle of the floor, in front of everyone. And just like always, no one said a thing. The third class. The stares were no longer fleeting. They clung to Maya and Chloe's every move. Smirks replaced greetings. Headshakes became muffled laughs. Chloe slipped on a pivot. A burst of laughter came from the corner. Then someone whispered from behind her charity case. Chloe heard it clearly, but she didn't turn. At the end of class, the sisters were taking off their shoes by the door. Kyle came closer, leaning against the lockers, his voice low. "Seriously, you two think you belong here? Or are you just auditioning for a movie called Poor But Trying?" Chloe looked up, her eyes unblinking. "We pay the same tuition as everyone else." Jason laughed. "Yeah, right." With what lunch tickets or a hardship waiver, Maya cut in, her voice calm and firm. "Whatever we pay with." "We didn't take a dime from anyone." Kyle's smile was a knife. "You don't have to. Just you standing here is enough to change the air in this room." The corner went silent for a beat. No one defended them. No one stepped in. A second later, another voice cut through sharp, clear. "No need to shout. You done, or do you need me to hold up a mirror so you can get a good look at that entitlement?" It was Daniel. A brown belt, taller than all of them. He didn't break his stride. Didn't even turn his head. The words landed colder and harder than any kick. Maya and Chloe didn't smile, but for the first time, their shoulders relaxed just a fraction. Daniel was gone, no one else said a word. But Kyle stood frozen for a beat. His gaze followed the girls not with anger, but with anxiety. No one knew it, but Kyle didn't really hate them. He was afraid of them. Kyle's father was Northwood's biggest sponsor, and Kyle lived in that gilded cage where a single scratch on the paint was enough to get him called into the cold room for a lecture with eyes as sharp as knives. In his house, perfection wasn't an expectation, it was the bare minimum. And now, these two girls in their worn-out shoes and old clothes, they were catching Coach Evans' eye. They were making the class look at them differently. For Kyle, that couldn't happen. Not in this dojo, not in front of his father, not while he carried the Wilson name. That night, the air in the kitchen was thick. The only sound was the click of their father closing a Tupperware lid. His eyes were on the sandwich, but his mind was somewhere else. On them, Maya was as still as a statue. Chloe was tearing the edge of a paper napkin, piece by piece. The silence stretched, heavy. Finally, their father spoke, his voice low, not looking at them. "How was class today?" "It was fine," Chloe mumbled, her eyes still on the shredded paper. "We didn't start anything," Maya said quietly, her voice a whisper. Click, the lunchbox was closed. He turned, his gaze swept over both of them, sharp and clear. "I didn't ask who started it. I asked if you want to continue." Not a second of hesitation, Chloe's head shot up, a fire in her eyes. Maya gave a firm, determined nod. "Yes." Their father nodded once, slowly. He leaned against the counter, his arms crossed. "Good, then tomorrow. You go back." He paused, his eyes locked on them. "But you are not to bow your heads, not ever. You make them see you coming." The next day, the wooden floor creaked with warm-up drills, heartbeats, breath, the commands of Coach Evans, and then another movement. Quick, subtle. Kyle's ankle pivoted out, right into Chloe's path, a perfectly timed trip. But Chloe saw it. She didn't dodge, didn't slow down. A single, explosive pop of her heel, quick as a flash. Her body went airborne, light and effortless, clearing the obstacle in one fluid, unbroken motion. She landed and kept running. Not a missed beat, not a single glance back, as if the leg had never been there. The silence shattered. A snicker, then another. They spread through the room, sharp, clear, and no one was laughing at Chloe. Kyle scowled, his face flushing red. Jason muttered a curse under his breath. Maya and Chloe just kept running, eyes forward, lungs burning. But their will burned hotter. They weren't here to impress anyone. They were here to survive. And in that room, under those fluorescent lights, a new truth began to form, silent, undeniable. Everyone was beginning to see. Monday. The air in the dojo was a sharpened blade. Coach Evans stood in the center of the mat, his voice echoing, cutting through the silence. "Today, we spar." 2 words, just 2 words. But they changed everything. In the corner, Kyle glanced at Jason. A smug smile spread across his face. Their game was about to begin, and their prey was right in front of them. They didn't wait. Kyle walked straight to Coach Evans, his voice sickeningly sweet. "Coach, can we spar with the new girls? To help them get acclimated." Help. The word sounded like a curse coming from his mouth. Coach Evans narrowed his eyes. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face. "Fine. Light contact. Technique only." Light, another word tainted. On the mat, Maya faced Kyle, Chloe faced Jason. The air around them felt thick, heavy. The bell rang, but no punches were thrown. Kyle and Jason didn't attack. They began a dance of contempt. They circled the sisters, light on their feet, their gloves hanging loosely, casually. Jason shrugged, a mocking smirk on his face. "Come on, charity case, make a move. Or do you only know how to take handouts?" Chloe gritted her teeth. She lunged, a straight, fast, clean punch. Jason didn't block. He simply tilted his head to the side. The punch sliced through empty air. Useless. "Whoa," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Almost got me." "Keep trying." Beside them, Maya was enduring the same. Kyle wasn't just dodging. He was making it a performance. He'd pivot, duck, making Maya's kicks look clumsy and desperate. "Where'd you learn that technique?" Kyle's voice floated as he moved. Under a bridge, the humiliation was a poison, seeping into their skin. Chloe's composure began to crack. She couldn't take it anymore. She saw a small opening as Jason backed away. Instinct took over, her body spun, channeling all her strength and fury into her heel. A spinning roundhouse kick aimed straight for Jason's head, a finishing blow. It was so fast the air whistled. Beep, the electronic buzzer shrieked, cutting off the attack. Coach Evans was between them, his arm up in a block. Chloe forbidden technique. "That's a dangerous strike, first warning." Jason stumbled back, clutching his head theatrically, his eyes wide with fake horror. "Jesus, she tried to kill me." He burst out laughing, a vile sound, and the other students began to snicker along. Seeing her sister mocked, Maya lost her cool. Too, but she tried to be smarter. She charged in, closing the distance, trying to use her physical strength to control Kyle. Her hands grabbed his arm, attempting a quick joint lock. Beep, the buzzer again. Maya, no grappling, no joint locks. Coach Evans's voice was a low growl, his patience wearing thin. "Point deduction." Kyle ripped his arm away, rubbing his elbow as if it were in agony. "Hey, take it easy," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "We're just sparring here. No need to get somebody hurt." Now, both sisters were rattled, warned and a point down. They panicked, they rushed in, but their attacks were now wild with rage and imprecise. Chloe threw a wide hook, but Jason was already backing away. She lost her balance, stumbling forward. In that instant, Jason stepped in, and his glove lightly tapped the side of Chloe's headgear. A feather-light touch, an easy point. Ting! The electronic scoreboard lit up. That tap, more than any punch, was the ultimate humiliation. Chloe roared like a wounded animal. She spun around and shoved Jason hard in the chest long after the point was scored. Beep, beep, beep. The buzzer sounded repeatedly, shrill and final. Coach Evans stepped in, his face like stone. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Match is over. The match was over, but the torture wasn't. Kyle walked up to Maya, leaned in, his voice dripping with fake pity. "It's okay. Not everyone is built for a place like this. Maybe you should go back to scrubbing floors." The dojo fell silent, but this silence was worse than jeers. It was filled with doubt, pity, and contempt. Coach Evans's eyes swept over the sisters, cold and distant. "Power without discipline," he said, his voice like a death sentence, "is just destruction." That night, their small room became a war zone. For the first time, "I told you," Chloe's voice cracked with rage. "We can't win their way, it's a rigged game." "It's not rigged." "Chloe," Maya screamed back, tears welling in her eyes. "It's rules, it's discipline, it's what we don't have." "Then I don't want it," Chloe shrieked, her hurt twisting into fury. "I'd rather be a street fighter than a puppet in their circus." "Then go," Maya shot back, her voice laced with pain. "Quit, just be a loser, loser." The word hung in the air between them, sharp, and it severed the last thread holding them together. That night, they didn't share a bed, They stayed in opposite corners of the room. The dream of a scholarship wasn't just broken. It was incinerated. And maybe their sisterhood along with it. The twins' bedroom wasn't the only place a war was brewing. Another one was raging just outside the doors of the Northwood Dojo. Simmering, dirty, and it was about to explode. Serpent's Fang Dojo, a name whispered with fear. Its leader, Master Kane, was once a student of Master Evans, a prodigy. But ambitious and cruel, he had left, taking with him a different philosophy. The philosophy of the snake. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. He wanted it all. He wanted the whole valley. And Northwood was a thorn in his side. A relic of the past he wanted to crush. He had sent challenges. Many times, Master Evans had always refused. Martial arts is for building, not destroying, he'd said. But Kane didn't care about building. He only wanted to destroy. The campaign began. First came the whispers, then came the motorcycles, revving their engines outside during class. The students of Serpent's Fang. They circled like vultures. Look, the ballerinas are having another recital. Empty cans thrown into the courtyard, candy wrappers, trash. Then came social media. Secretly filmed videos of Northwood students practicing katas, dubbed over with circus music and cruel laughter. Thousands of views. Comments like acid. Is this a dojo or a daycare? That old man needs to retire. They look weak as hell. Northwood was bleeding. Drop by drop, and then the head snake decided to deliver the final blow. One fateful afternoon, the dojo doors flew open. Master Kane walked in, followed by his most elite students. They moved as if the place already belonged to them. The air in the room was sucked dry. Kane looked at no one but Master Evans. I came to see how your nursing home is doing. Old master, he said, his voice as sweet as poison. Still teaching the kids how to bow. Master Evans stood still, his face unreadable. You are not welcome here. Kane. Oh. But I'm here to deliver a lesson. Kane smirked. A lesson in reality. He gestured to his students. Is anyone in this chicken coop brave enough? Silence fell, until one person stood up. Kyle. His face was pale, but his eyes were on fire. The flames of humiliation from his spar with Maya and Chloe had not yet died out. And now they were being doused in gasoline. I am, he said, his voice hoarse. Kyle. No, Master Evans commanded, but it was too late. A prince's pride had been trampled one too many times. He stormed onto the mat. His opponent was Kane's top student, a giant with the smile of a predator. The match began. Kyle fought with all his perfect technique. His punches and kicks were fast and precise, but his opponent didn't care about points. He just blocked, absorbed and waited for a mistake. And it came. After a flurry of attacks, Kyle left a small opening in his defense. Like lightning, the giant lunged. It wasn't a technical strike, it was a brutal shoulder tackle, followed by a merciless barrage of blows to Kyle's body. Beep, beep, Master Evans's foul buzzer sounded. But it was too late. Kyle went down, gasping, helpless. He had won on points, but he had lost his dignity. Kane stepped onto the mat, slowly. He placed a single foot on Kyle's sprawled-out chest, an act of absolute dominance. The silence shattered, not with a whisper, but with a roar. You bastard, get your foot off of him. It was Chloe. She and Maya took a step forward in unison, their bodies shifting into an attack stance, their hands clenched into fists. The wildfire in their eyes blazed. They didn't care about rules, didn't care about consequences. They only saw an injustice that needed to be punished. You two want to try, Kane sneered, a sick amusement in his eyes. Let's see what these two alley cats can do. But before the sisters could charge, an arm shot out, barring their path. It was Master Evans. He wasn't looking at them. His eyes were locked on Kane. Stand down, he commanded, his voice low and final. This is not your fight. Chloe started to protest, but a firm grip from Maya held her back. There was something different in their master's eyes now. A terrifying restraint, like a volcano about to erupt. He stepped forward, facing Kane. His old eyes were now as cold as ice. Kane smirked. What's this? Old Master finally coming out to play, or should we just settle this right here? Master Evans didn't answer right away. He looked around the dojo. He saw the fear in the children's eyes. He saw Kyle, his proud prince, trying to get up in shame, and he saw the future of his dojo, standing on the edge of a cliff. The silence could not hold. The restraint had reached its limit. You want a fight? Master Evans's voice was deep and resonant, drowning out all whispers. You'll have one. He pointed to the calendar on the wall. 1 month, the inter-dojo tournament, my team against yours. He took another step forward, his voice like steel. And the loser closes their dojo. For good. The challenge was thrown. Right here, in front of everyone. A declaration of war that could not be taken back. And the air in the dojo, already tense, now felt like it was about to ignite. The next morning, the air in the Northwood dojo was cold, heavy. The stench of failure and fear still lingered. Pressure, expectation and dread. Everyone knew Northwood was on the brink. Master Evans gathered everyone. His eyes swept over each face, the trembling students, the worried parents. We will fight, his voice rang out, without a trace of hesitation. But not everyone will be on the mat. This is not a recital, this is a war. He began to call out names. Each one landed like the fall of a hammer. Daniel, the leader, the bridge between them all. Jason, the tactician, trying to hide his anxiety. He had to learn to fight with will, not fear. Kyle, the fallen prince, looked up, the fire of resentment still burning in his eyes. He had to learn to swallow his pride and trust in the strength of his team. And then the last two names, the two no one expected. Maya. She had to learn to control her power, to follow technique. Chloe. She had to learn to calm her fire, to focus on strategy. A murmur spread through the room. Those two, the rookies. The ones who had been so utterly humiliated. Kyle let out a snort of derision. Are you kidding? Coach, you're going to use those two alley cats to… Silence. Master Evans's voice was thunder. Kyle fell silent. Your ego got you humiliated. Kyle, their power hasn't even had a chance to be seen. The team is set. He explained, briefly, clearly, those not chosen, because they weren't ready. Because their spirits were too weak. Because in this fight, one weak link would destroy the entire chain. There was no room for weakness. 1 month? They had only 1 month to turn 5 disparate individuals into a single weapon. Welcome to hell. Day 1. Your ego, Master Evans said, circling the 5 of them on the mat. Leave it at the door, in here. You are nothing. You are a team. He threw them grey training uniforms with no ranks, no names. You will eat together, train together, breathe together, until you move as one. The first training sessions were a disaster, a chaotic mess of distrust and resentment. Kyle refused to partner with Maya, claiming her style would contaminate his technique. Chloe dismissed Jason's strategies, calling them stupid games on paper. They argued. They clashed. Day 10, Master Evans turned on the large screen. On it were videos of Serpent's Fang, not the mocking clips. These were from underground tournaments. Brutal strikes, vicious techniques, opponents leaving the mat on stretchers. A dead silence filled the dojo. The snickering was gone. For the first time, they saw the monster they were about to face. It wasn't just strong, it was cruel. Day 20, the intensity ratcheted up. Drills pushed them to their physical and mental limits. They had to carry each other on their backs, running laps around the block. They had to spar in the dark, relying only on sound and a sense of their teammates. Personal animosity began to fade, replaced by a single, unifying feeling survival. During one sparring session, Chloe was cornered. Kyle, instead of criticizing, yelled a tactical command. Fall back, draw him in, I'll flank him. Chloe, for a split second, trusted him, and it worked. During a conditioning drill, Kyle collapsed from exhaustion. Maya, without a word, turned back and pulled him to his feet. Get up, she said, her voice a hoarse rasp. We're not done. They still weren't friends, but they had become a team, an alliance forged in fire. Day 30, the final training session. They stood in a line, facing Master Evans. Their bodies were bruised, aching, but their eyes were different. The arrogance was gone. The fear was gone. There was only a cold, steely resolve. Master Evans looked at each of them. He nodded. "You are ready." The arena was a cauldron. The air was thick with sweat, screams, and something that felt like pure hatred. Spotlights beat down on the only space in the world that mattered right now. The blue mat, a circle of honor, or a tomb of disgrace. In one corner, the Northwood team stood in silence, each lost in their own world. The five of them were like the fingers of a clenching fist. In the opposite corner, the wolves of Serpent's Fang bared their teeth. They laughed, whistled, and fed on their opponent's fear. For them, this wasn't a competition. It was a hunt. Master Evans placed a hand on Jason's shoulder. He didn't say much, just a nod. "Stay calm, stick to the strategy, trust yourself." Jason took a deep breath and stepped out. He was the team's brain, the opening move. But his opponent was a walking wall of muscle, a brute who only knew overwhelming force. The match began. Jason moved, nimble as a squirrel, dodging hammer-like blows and scoring clever points with light. Precise taps. 1 point, 2 points. But every point came at a cost. He was being worn down, physically and mentally. His opponent was a steel wall. Hitting him only hurt Jason more. The brute absorbed the points. And he retaliated. Not with technique, but with a savage kick to the body. Jason blocked it, but his arm screamed in protest. He scored the point, but he paid for it with his stamina. He moved again, scoring another point with a precise hip kick. And again, he paid the price. The brute charged, using raw power to corner him. A piston-like punch landing on his ribs with a dry thud that stole his breath. Every point he earned was a debt paid in pain. He was running out of energy. His brain was still working, but his body was no longer obeying. The final bell rang like a sweet release, but the scoreboard wasn't. Score 0-1. Jason staggered back to the corner, his face pale with exhaustion, every breath a struggle. The team's hope took its first cold blow. Anxiety began to creep into their eyes. "Maya, you're up." Master Evans's voice was low, not allowing the disappointment time to settle. Maya stepped up, carrying the weight of the first loss. Her opponent, a giant, sneered when he saw her. "Sending a little girl, you must be out of fighters." Maya charged. The rage from the insult exploded, but that rage became her weakness. She attacked wildly, and he simply stood there, using his long reach to block and counter. His points racked up. Desperation began to gnaw at Maya. She had the power, but she couldn't touch him. Beep. Half-time. She returned to the corner, shaking her head. "I can't." "He's arrogant." Kyle cut in, his eyes locked on the opponent. "He repeats the same combo. 2 punches, then a high kick. Don't block it. Charge in and take out his standing leg." It wasn't advice. It was a command, from the one who had once despised her most. The bell rang. Maya took a deep breath, pushing aside her despair. The giant launched his familiar combo, smug and predictable. 1 punch, 2 punches, and as his leg began to swing up for the final high kick, Maya didn't back away. She didn't block. She exploded forward. She dropped her center of gravity, her body a blur like a hunting panther, sliding under the arc of the kick. The whoosh of air brushed her hair as his heel sliced through the space where her head had been a millisecond before. Now she was inside. Right beside him, where his long reach was useless. She wasn't aiming for points, she was aiming for his foundation. Her shoulder slammed into his thigh like a sledgehammer. At the same time, her leg hooked behind his, locking his standing ankle. It wasn't a trip, it was an uprooting. The combination of the force above and the pull below sent the giant completely off balance. He didn't just fall, he collapsed. Crash, the entire arena went silent. Maya stood there, panting, and for the first time that day, the Northwood corner erupted, score 1-1. They were still alive. The atmosphere in the Northwood corner had changed. Desperation was replaced by a fragile spark of hope. Daniel, the team captain, carried that newly kindled hope onto the mat. He was the team's anchor, calm and detached, composed. His opponent wasn't huge, not overtly strong. He had a sly smile and eyes that constantly darted, calculating. He was a fox. The match began. It was a battle of wits, a chess match played with fists and feet. Daniel fought with discipline. Every block, every move was textbook perfect. But the fox didn't play by the book. He constantly changed the rhythm. Fast, slow, attacking then retreating. He used feints and phantom punches to force Daniel to react, draining his energy. Points were scored sparingly. The match was a seesaw battle down to the final seconds of the last round. Daniel was up by 1 point. He just had to defend, just run out the clock. He kept his distance, moving cautiously. The fox knew it. He knew time was running out, and he started to play dirty. He rushed in, but didn't attack. He muttered, just loud enough for Daniel to hear. "See that blonde in the third row? She's hot." Daniel frowned but held his ground. "Wonder how she'll cry when your dojo gets shut down." The fox lunged again, a fake punch. Daniel wasn't fooled. "I'm going to find her after this, to comfort her." And that's when it happened. A flash of rage, however brief, clouded Daniel's judgment. The discipline he'd honed for years shattered in an instant. He charged forward, intending to throw a punch to shut his opponent's mouth. It was the exact moment the fox was waiting for. It was the trap. As Daniel lunged, leaving an opening in his defense, the fox sidestepped, a lightning-fast spinning kick to Daniel's ribs. Ting, 2 points, the deciding points. The final bell rang, score 1-2. A dead silence returned. Heavier than before, Daniel stood up, his face emotionless, but his eyes held a bitter disappointment. He'd been tricked. They were on the edge of the cliff. One more loss. And it was all over. Kyle stepped out of his corner and into the circle of light. All eyes were on him. And on the other side. He was waiting. The one who had humiliated him. The one who had placed a foot on his chest. The one who had made him a joke. His smile was just as arrogant as before, as if the outcome was already decided. The bell rang. The memory of that day flooded back, suffocating Kyle. Every move his opponent made brought back the ghost of his failure. He fought mechanically. The perfect techniques he was once so proud of were now hesitant, lacking confidence. He struck, but without conviction. He defended, but with fear in his eyes. He was fighting both his opponent and the demon in his own head. And his opponent knew it. He savored it. He didn't rush the finish. He was toying with him. "What's wrong? Prince lost your crown." He whispered every time he got close. He blocked one of Kyle's kicks and shoved him away, an act of pure contempt. "You gonna cry this time?" Kyle was being pushed into the corner of the mat. The points were stacking against him. His body screamed, his heart hammered against his ribs. He was about to lose. Again. In front of everyone. A humiliation worse than defeat. His opponent charged in, ready to throw a final, showboating hook to extinguish Northwood's hope completely. His standing leg, a sharp, piercing scream, like a knife, cut through the noise. It was Chloe. She wasn't just yelling, she was giving a command. He shifts his weight too early on the hook, don't back up attack now. For a millisecond, everything in Kyle's mind stopped, his opponent's taunts, his own fear, and Chloe's voice, the voice of the street kid he had once despised. But that voice was now the only life raft in the storm. In a moment of pure insanity, he chose to trust her. He cleared his mind, banished the ghost. All that was left was instinct and trust in his teammate. As his opponent's fist swung toward him, Kyle didn't back away as he normally would. He did something no one expected. He stepped forward, leaning just enough to dodge the punch by a hair's breadth. At the same time, his body pivoted, a perfect roundhouse kick, a technique he had practiced 1,000 times until it was boring. But this time was different. It wasn't a performance piece. It was a weapon. It was guided by an eye he once scorned. His heel connected with his opponent's unbalanced standing leg with a dry, sickening crack. The opponent collapsed, clutching his leg, his face a mask of pain and surprise. Kyle stood there, panting, his chest heaving. He looked down at the man on the floor. Then he looked up and raised his fist in victory. A roar tore from his throat, a roar of release. He hadn't just won a match. He had killed the ghost inside him. Score 2-2, it all came down to the final match. Chloe stepped onto the mat. The entire arena held its breath. She was no longer the bullied girl. She was no longer the new kid. She was Northwood's last hope. Her opponent, the final fighter from Serpent's Fang, sneered. Your fate rests on the shoulders of a slum girl. How tragic. Beep. The bell rang. The match was a whirlwind. Speed against speed, cunning against instinct. Chloe scored a point with a lightning-fast kick. Her opponent tied it up with a vicious counter. They traded points, blow for blow. No one could pull ahead. Every point was paid for with sweat and painful impacts. They entered the final round. Both were exhausted. Chloe's lungs burned. Her muscles screamed. The fight was now about will. Who would break first? Her opponent became reckless. She charged in, a flurry of desperate attacks, trying to end it with sheer force. A punch grazed Chloe's cheek, stinging. A kick landed on her ribs, stealing her breath. She was losing. She could feel it. The final 10 seconds. The scoreboard counted down. 10. 9. 8. The score was still tied. Her opponent charged again. A desperate high kick aimed at Chloe's head. An all-or-nothing gamble. If it landed, the tournament was over. In that moment, everything in Chloe's mind went still. The roar of the crowd faded. The physical pain disappeared. There was only her opponent, and the month of hell she had just endured. She remembered Master Evans's words. Discipline is the foundation that allows you to be creative. The opponent's kick was coming. Chloe didn't retreat. She didn't dodge. She did something no one could have predicted. She dropped her center of gravity, almost kneeling on the mat. The high kick sailed over her head with a deadly whoosh. In that instant, while her opponent was airborne, completely off balance, Chloe, from her incredibly low stance, used the last of her strength. Not to throw a beautiful kick, not to execute a complex technique, but to launch the most basic attack of all, a straight punch. A perfect, textbook punch. It wasn't as powerful as Maya's. It didn't have the tactical intent of Jason's. It was just correct. Her fist connected with the chest guard of her airborne opponent. Ting 1 point. Her opponent crashed to the mat, and the final bell rang at the exact same time. Beep, beep, beep. Chloe stood there, gasping for air. She looked up at the scoreboard. Northwood 3, Serpent's Fang 2. They had done it, not as 5 people, but as one. Silence blanketed the arena. Then it shattered into a roar. The Northwood team was engulfed in a wave of hugs and cheers. On the other side, the Serpent's Fang team was broken. Master Kane stared at the scoreboard, his face a mixture of disbelief and silent fury. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked away. His pack of wolves followed silently behind him. An empire had fallen. Amidst the chaos of the celebration, the 5 members of the Northwood team stood in a small circle, exhausted, bruised. But they were standing. Daniel clapped Chloe on the shoulder, a brilliant smile on his face. Jason gave her a nod, a rare sign of acknowledgement. And then Kyle stepped forward. He walked up to Maya and Chloe. The arrogance was gone. The contempt was gone. There was only exhaustion and something else, a newly formed respect. He was quiet for a moment, as if searching for the words. Finally, he looked Maya straight in the eye. "Your style," he started, his voice a little hoarse. "It's not trash." He paused, then added, "It just needs to be polished." It wasn't an apology. It was more than that. It was the acknowledgement of one warrior to another. Maya didn't smile, she just nodded. Kyle held out his hand. Maya took it, a firm handshake. A week later, the Northwood Dojo was different. The air was no longer heavy. It was filled with energy and pride. Master Evans gathered everyone. "We won," he said, his tone as steady as ever, but his eyes were warm. Not because of any one outstanding individual, but because we all learned to be a team. He looked toward Kyle, then to his father standing in the crowd of parents, and to recognize that team spirit and the extraordinary courage of our 2 newest members, our sponsor has made a decision. All eyes fell on Maya and Chloe. Northwood Dojo, Master Evans announced, will be awarding 2 full scholarships. He looked directly at the 2 sisters. One for Maya and one for Chloe. The room erupted, but Maya and Chloe didn't hear a thing. They just looked at each other, stunned. Tears began to stream down their cheeks, not tears of pain or anger, but the tears of an impossible dream that had just come true. A normal Tuesday evening. A few weeks later, class was over. Everyone else had gone home. Only 4 remained: Maya, Chloe, Kyle, and Jason. They were cleaning the mats. No one had asked them to. They just stayed. There were no deep conversations, just short, simple phrases. "You missed a spot," Kyle said, pointing to a sweat mark. "Then clean it yourself," Chloe shot back. Not looking up, a ghost of a smile touched Kyle's lips. They weren't best friends. They probably never would be. But they were something else, something forged in fire and sweat. They had learned the most important lesson on this mat. True respect doesn't come from defeating others, it comes from fighting alongside them. They were a team,